Don't you ever fart on my tits again.
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. Today we're going to be taking a look at another brand new offering from one of my absolute favorite small micro brands, Divo Knives. This time we're going to let the nip slip. And that reminds me, I believe that this is probably the biggest mistake that Divo Knives has made by not making this knife a slip joint, because they could have called it the nip slip. And I am greatly disappointed that I don't get the chance to do that. However, for everybody else, I think this is going to be the perfect execution, because everybody loves a Wharncliffe, everybody loves a flipper, and it's a really well done liner lock. Nice flipping action. A little bit lighter on the detent than some of Divo's previous offerings, but you do have to realize this is a much smaller knife. There's not a lot of mass going on here in this very thin blade. Well, I want to say very thin. It's ground very thin, but it's actually fairly thick blade stock when you really take a good look at it. This thing is extraordinarily made for such a tiny little knife. If you want to see just how small it is, let's bring out something a little bit larger, and you get a real perspective on how teeny tiny that nip really is. Now me, I personally don't mind a large set of nips. Kind of like them actually. But there's something to be said for small, compact, not sticking out too much. And the fact that there's some purple on this nip excites me as well. I really like the fact that they put in a lot of teeny tiny details in such a diminutive sized knife. This is a knife that they could have very easily just made a very plain Jane knife, and it would have done very well. Instead, they took the time to do this very nice, precise milling in the carbon fiber, which gives it an extra bit of character, and then decided to anodize both the back spacer and the pocket clip, as well as the pivot collars, to give you something a little bit extra special. So again, I think this would have done just fine if it was just a bead blasted titanium frame with no additional embellishments, but the fact that they put in the extra effort really makes this a special knife. Another thing that I really like is the fact that you've got this hidden lanyard opening up here in the back spacer. Now, most people would have put that at the end, but they decided to put it up here at the top of the back spacer. And I like how that looks. Looks really cool. Looks like kind of a butt on the nip. So you got nips and butts. So you got pretty much everything covered. As far as the action goes, you can reverse flick it, comes out nicely, or you can use the flipper tab, which is nicely jimped, by the way. So you have plenty of traction. Your finger's probably not ever going to slip off of there. Nicely done. All right, let's get into the TLDW. Too long, didn't watch. This is the highline stuff, the pros and the cons, to see what this knife is all about. The first pro for the Nip is going to be its size. There are a lot of people that really like micro-size knives, and there aren't really a lot of very good ones out there available on the market. And this bad boy right here, oh, yeah. In S90V in carbon fiber, or you could choose one of the full titanium versions as well, which we'll discuss later on. You've got premium materials. You've got a cool size. You've got a nice, thinly ground, sharp, hollow ground blade. I know I'm kind of going through the pros quickly here because there's actually a lot of pros to talk about. Another pro is the fact that these are going to be so inexpensive, $175. A lot of design went into this, a lot of time in manufacturing, I'm sure. And to get it for only $175, pretty sweet deal with all those premium materials. Camo carbon, S90V, lots of anodized titanium bits. And that's really what Divo is all about. It's all about screaming deals. Some of my favorite EDC knives are from Divo Knives, and they're all incredibly affordable and give you a lot more than you ever bargained for in that price. Oh, yeah. I do truly love Divo. I obviously really, really like the owners, Kevin and Colin. But it doesn't change the fact that if the knife was shit, I would tell you it's shit. This is not shit. It is going to be, however, way too small for a lot of people. You have to actually really enjoy the feel and the operation of a micro-sized knife. This is very, very small. Here it is up against the Stout from Divo. It is considerably smaller. As a matter of fact, the whole knife open is almost the size of the Stout when it's closed. Not a huge difference there in sizes. So yes, it is a very, very tiny knife. But as long as that's what you're expecting and you know how to read, you know, when you go to shop on a website and it says, here's the overall length, here's the blade length, as long as you know how to read, you are not going to be disappointed, because I think that they really bumped up the quality on this far above what the price would typically dictate. Okay, more pros. As I mentioned earlier, the titanium bits that were anodized so well in such a nice contrasting color to the carbon fiber. Another pro is something that snuck up on me that I didn't even notice until I was photographing the knife, and the fact that there is actually blue in this camo carbon. I thought it was just plain old carbon fiber when I took it out of the box and started flipping it and playing with it. And then when I had the lighting just right and I was zoomed in on the photography, I was like, whoa, hey, there's blue in there. And the blue actually shifts to purple. You see some purple back here. There's blue all through here. So it works well with the purple anodized titanium bits. So details abound. Quality is phenomenal. Design is great. Size is going to be up to you and how you tend to use your knives. This is going to be a great little box cutter. It's a fun little fidget toy. And it's certainly not a knife that's going to intimidate people. So if you work in an environment where you know you're not allowed to carry knives because something like this might be a bit intimidating to your coworkers, where they would actually say, he's carrying a weapon, instead of he's carrying a utilitarian cutting tool. And it's just so cute. I think that's another major pro for this knife. The fact that it's going to be kind of a family-friendly, take-it-anywhere kind of deal. And if you live in a restrictive state where you can't carry over a 3-inch blade, then you're going to be super happy because you can carry this, I would think, pretty much anywhere. Now for the cons. Now, the size is going to work as a pro and a con. I think there are going to be some people that are going to go, this is just too small because they haven't really owned or played with any micro-sized EDC knives, and they're just not used to how small this knife really, really is. So this is one that I think that is going to have a lot of lovers, and it's probably going to have some haters. And not hating on the knife itself, but hating on the size, because they didn't fully understand how tiny this knife really is until they get it in their hands. And that's fine. Even here on this video and seeing it in my hand, you might still have the opinion that it's a little bit larger than it really is, or you're thinking I'm blowing things way out of proportion, and it can't be as teeny tiny as I keep saying it is. I will stress it again. This is tiny. Oh. Any other cons? I don't really see any other cons. I think that you'll have to get used to the flipping action. I think it's kind of in between a push button and a light switch. You're kind of almost pinching it right here to get the snappiest of actions out of this tiny little blade. Again, that is not an issue with this knife. It's a byproduct of its size, blade stock thickness, and weight. And there's only so much tension that they can put on the liner lock to push the detent up against the detent hole in the blade. So that is really just a byproduct of any knife of this size. But I will say this, having owned many micro-sized knives in my time, the guys over at Divo, I think, did a better job than most have in the past. Now, I believe these are made by Kubi again, which I want to say Kubi also did the mash. Think I'm right on that. My memory hasn't been as good as it used to be, but I'm going to go with that. Yes, this is definitely made by Kubi, and I do believe this one was as well. And I got to tell you, for a brand that is typically known for extraordinarily inexpensive knives, they make their knives feel pretty premium for what you're getting at the prices. So, yeah, good job on Divo for having a really good OEM partner, because honestly, Divo could go out there and say, hey, we've got badass designs, we're using high-grade materials, there's no reason why we can't charge $300-400 for these knives. Maybe not this little tiny one, but just using these as comparison. It would have been very easy for them to make an extra $100 on every one of the knives out here, but they don't. They source out really good quality OEMs that offer extraordinary value, that allow them to keep a nice low price. And I really respect that. And that's coming from the fact that they're both knife collectors at heart. They've been out there in the market. They've spent their own money. Kev has reviewed thousands of knives. He's seen most every kind of price range you can imagine and seen varying levels of quality from each of these manufacturers. And narrowing things down over time, they have partnered with some very good manufacturers that offer a great value to put their names on. So this is not just somebody going, hey, I kind of like knives. I'm a businessman. This is a business. I can succeed at this, and I can give people what I think they want. This is somebody that lives and breathes knives, that says, hey, I've got a super talented partner in Colin that can design pretty much anything. Does really accurate computer renderings, really nice looking stuff. Can take my basic ideas, add some flair to them. I can almost guarantee you that the milling idea here probably came from Colin. And I would think maybe the pops of color in the anodized titanium bits probably came from Kev. That's just pure speculation on my part. And I just realized, as if the knife wasn't light enough, they went ahead and skeletonized the liner on the show side to further reduce the weight. So you've got a partnership of two really great guys that not only know what they like in knives, not only know what's out there and available from other brands, but they have listened through their live streams and other feedback, comments on on Kevin's YouTube channel and their Instagrams, seeing what the buying public really enjoys in their knives. And I'm sorry if I sound like I'm getting far too excited about such a tiny little knife. I really love the brand, and I really respect the guys that own it, and I really think this is a cool little addition to their brand because they've got pretty much everything covered, right? You've got your compact EDC size knife that has an utterly fantastic blade shape for EDC cutting. You've got a really nice full titanium liner lock and a medium to large size EDC. And then you've got what I think may be one of the best blade shapes out there for an EDC knife. So they're kind of covering everything. If they only had the nip, you'd go,
this brand is severely limiting itself.
But this is like the 5th release from them. I'm also counting in the Stout V2, which is not sitting here. That was probably my favorite out of everything they've done. And they still didn't break the bank on them. They still offered them at a decent price. So when I get this excited, there's a reason. It's not just because the knife looks good. It's not just because it operates well, but because they figured out all of the little details. The forward finger choil here. On an already teeny tiny blade, they have taken up probably a good 1/8 of an inch that could have been used for cutting edge. They could have brought the plunge right back here to where the frame meets and had probably another 1/8 of an inch of blade cutting edge. But instead, they realize, especially on a knife this tiny, you're not going to want to hold it with 2 fingers. You're going to want to choke up on it and get a decent grip. While this is not a fighting knife by any stretch of the imagination, you're still going to want to have a good grip on anything that you're cutting because it's a knife. It's a sharp tool that you don't want, falling out of your hand onto your toe or anything else. So they love knives. They live around knives all day, every day. And they put out knives that they themselves want to use. I'll be honest, I think half the knives that have come out, Kevin probably only made because he wanted the knife himself. And he's like, if nobody else is going to make the damn thing, I'm going to make it. So basically, if you guys buy into a Divo knife, you are more or less supporting the knife habit of Kevin and Colin so they can have the knives they really want. They're just making some available to the rest of us. That's probably a good way of looking at it. All right, this is also, by the way, because I have not mentioned this yet. I'm supposed to be getting to the specs, but I'm going to wait a second on that. This is the first time that Kubi has done a belt satin finish on one of their blades. Typically, I guess they're stone washed, they're bead blasted, or they'll do, I think they have like a weird, they always had this weird vertical satin, which is it's a machine finish, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're hitting with something like a Scotch-Brite belt or Scotch-Brite wheel, and everything is vertical from the flats into the bevels, and they're blending it together. As much as I love that knife, I'm not a huge fan of that finish. This gives you much more of a raw, fresh off the grinder look that you'll get from a custom knife in many cases. Let's take a look at the plunges here. How do the plunges look good? Almost perfect. Actually, they are just about perfectly symmetrical. Nicely done. The edge comes all the way back to the heel. Plenty of room from the plunge to the heel where you've got more sharpening capability down the road if you need to keep touching it up. You're not going to start hammering off a square notch at the heel of the edge. Nice jimping on the spine of the blade. Oh, you know what? I didn't even notice. Look at that. Nice. It's not really a swedge. This is more of a chamfer that they've done on this this top edge up here. Looks really, really good. Also reduces weight from the blade as well. They did a damn good job on that. All right, let's get into the specs very quickly. I'm just going to pop them up on the screen. I'm not going to go through them all. Just suffice it to say, this is a tiny little booger. Now we bring it up here to my final thoughts and the actual review section of the video. I've really covered most of everything that I want to talk about on this. However, it's really important to note that you are always getting high value when it comes to buying any of the Divo knives. You're buying into a brand that's not, it's not world famous. It's not a household name. They're not pumping out 100,000 knives a year. As a customer, you're not just a number to them. In many cases, I guarantee when Kevin's generating the shipping labels, he knows the person's name that's on the shipping label because they've interacted to some degree in a Facebook group or on YouTube or Instagram or somewhere. He's very, very, very connected in with the community. So is Colin. I don't mean to take anything away from Colin. We don't really get to talk about Colin as much as Kevin because we're so used to seeing Kevin's goofy face on YouTube all the time that it's easy to just focus on him. But these are guys that are well tuned into the community. They give back to the community. They're buying, selling, trading within the community, within their own personal knives. They're just good guys. So it's fun to support good people. You're not just handing money over to an enormous brand that couldn't give two shits about you, that don't know who you are, that aren't going to communicate with you outside of securing a sale. One thing I do want to point out, because I forgot to earlier, I meant to put this in with the specs, but there are going to be a few different options available. This one that we're affectionately calling the Purple Nurple. So you're getting the purple and lavender camo carbon fiber with the purple accents and the belt satin blade. He's calling the other one the Jack Sparrow. Black pearl camo carbon with black DLC accents and belt satin blade. The Tidbit, really? The Tidbit? The Tidbit, which is going to be a White Mountain Knives exclusive, will be a full titanium version in stonewash titanium, blue accents, and a stonewash blade. So that's going to be more of a user knife that you're not going to mind kind of scratching up a little bit here and there. And then there is the Blackout. That's going to be an exclusive to traditionalpocketknives.com, and it's going to be titanium with 100% blackout. The blade, the liners, the hardware, the pivot, everything's going to be black on that particular version. So now you know the options that are going to be available, and you're going to want to be ready for the drop, because if you miss out on this, you're going to kind of be upset. October 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern is when you're going to be able to get into the camo carbon fiber options on the Divo Knives website. And then White Mountain Knives and traditional pocket knives, I believe we're going to drop around the same time. May not be the exact same time of day, but I do believe it's on the same date. If you're wondering, and maybe I'm wrong, you can always send a message to Kevin at LeftyEDC on Instagram, or Colin, or just over to the Divo Knives Instagram and say, hey, when are those two versions dropping? Or you can contact those retailers directly so that you don't miss out. Because I'm pretty sure that the Blackout and the Jack Sparrow are probably going to sell out first. Now, I like the purple up against the camo carbon myself, plus it greatly reduces the weight being all carbon fiber, but there's something about all black titanium. I think that's going to be pretty cool. And the Jack Sparrow being, the black pearl camo carbon, that's some good looking stuff. So I don't think there's a bad choice among them. I'm kind of disappointed that there's no reverse camo option that Kevin seems to like so much. Anyway, I'm blathering on way too long. Make sure you get your order in. Again, these are not a pre-order. They're going to be live available on October 19th, 2023. And that's going to do me for this video. Thank you guys, as always, for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.